Hey everybody, this is part two of my Zombie Island of Dr. Ned level 69 scaled playthrough, and touching upon what I was kind of mentioned in the first part. Yeah, this is my favorite Borderlands 1 DLC. I know Nox is pretty popular with everybody, and the Nox DLC was good, don't get me wrong, but being a horror movie guy and living in the area where the holy trinity of zombie movies was filmed, like I live like right smack dab in the middle of where Night of the Living Dead, Day of the Dead, and Dawn of the Dead were filmed. Actually, Day of the Dead was filmed like 25 minutes away from where I currently live, so that's kind of cool. But so I'm a bit of a zombie buff. People, I know they've kind of been beaten into the ground lately with, well, not even lately, for like the past 5 years in video games. But I like my zombies, but I think a lot of that is because of my geological location. But we're going to try to find the spooky entrance in this video and recover the antidote and knock out a couple side quests here and there. Touching upon the Romero movies, I live probably, I'm a bad judge of distance. I think it's like 45 minutes to an hour to get to the mall that they filmed the original Dawn of the Dead at from my house. Possibly. I can't remember for sure. It's been a while since I've been there. But, that's kind of neat having that stuff near me. And they filmed Night of the Living Dead up in I can't think of the name now, but it's not that far from here. It's probably like a half-hour drive.
At first, these tales were laughed off at the saloon, but
I think they tore down the house though from the original Night of the Living Dead. I can't remember. I want to say they tore it down. But the cemetery's still there from the beginning of the movie. Which, it's funny, like, those movies are so revered, and they hold a special place in my heart too. And everybody talks about Dawn of the Dead being like one of the greatest zombie movies of all time. And Dawn of the Dead is a very good movie, and it makes a very good statement on American consumerism at the time that the movie was made. But man, is that movie long-winded. Romero's earlier works, like I don't have any disrespect for Romero or the work that he did, but man, he kind of had a little bit of Stephen King in him, and I like Stephen King. I've read a lot of Stephen King books. One of my favorite book series of all time is The Dark Tower, and another author that I really like is Clive Barker. But like those three guys, in their chosen form of media and art, they can be very long-winded at times. Like, I think the old Mystery Science Theater 3000 joke when they did Night of the Living Dead was the real-time board nailing when they were boarding up the windows and the doors in Night of the Living Dead. I mean, as good as those movies were, it's like there was some fat that could have been trimmed. I got the Dawn of the Dead Super Deluxe Collector's Edition DVD, and it's got a shorter cut of the movie, and it just, in my opinion, it just flows so much better, And then there's an extended European cut, which I just haven't brought myself to watch yet, because, like I said, I mean, it just kind of drags ass in parts. And I'm not like a mindless moviegoer that has to be spoon-fed constant action or anything like that. I mean, I can appreciate long movies. When I was younger, I watched, the three Godfather films, and I watched a lot of, went through a gangster flick period for a while there, with the three Godfather movies, Casino, Scarface, things like that. So, I mean, I can watch long movies. Movie length doesn't bother me, but it's got to flow right. You don't want a 3-hour movie to feel like a 3-hour movie, and there's just parts of Dawn of the Dead that just make that movie feel longer than it needs to be. Out of the three of them, I would say Day of the Dead is my favorite out of those original three. And I think the most recently, I kind of slacked off after a while. I think the most recent one I saw was Land of the Dead, so I haven't seen like Diary or anything like that that he did. Which I want to, I just haven't got around to seeing it, you know, as I got older, you know, and responsibilities changed. You know, it's like, well, I gotta buy groceries. I don't have money to go out and get a DVD or anything like that. So, I mean, as priorities changed and my time, my free time dwindled, you know, with getting a good full-time job and having a kid and stuff, you know, things like that kind of put on the back burner. Unfortunately, I've put them on the back burner for a few years, so I think that's something I'm going to try to rectify in 2014. Try to make better use of my free time, get caught up on some of my, on some films that I want to see that I haven't seen. Luckily, I've been blessed with a awesome 6-year-old son that, for the most part, is into the same things that I'm into. He doesn't read comic books or anything like that, but you know, him and I can sit down and watch the Marvel movies together, and he's a huge Batman fan, so you know, we watch the Batman movies, and you know, it's pretty cool when, like, for Christmas, you can get him the Tim Burton 1989 Batman Anniversary Collector's Edition DVD for Christmas, and he's as excited that he got it as you are for buying it for him. So, you know, I mean, that's shit like that. I mean, there's just certain... I mean, I was scared shitless when I found out that my girlfriend at the time was pregnant, but there's no feeling in the world like bonding with your kid over a common interest. And he likes Legos now, you know, he's been getting into Legos, so I've been buying him Legos for his birthday and Christmas and stuff like that. And you know, it's nice being able to bond on that kind of level with him and be able to do stuff like that. And I you know, I don't let him play mature games or anything like that. Him and I will sit down and we'll run, you know, we'll play like Burnout or I was testing the limits there to see how far I could get those eggs. But you know, we'll sit down, we'll play Scribble Knots or something like that, you know, things like that. You know, it kind of reminds me of like when I was a kid and I was playing the original. My dad and I would play Super Mario Brothers or Duck Hunt, you know, and when I was a kid and I got my first Nintendo for Christmas, you know, it was the one packaged with the Super Mario Brothers Duck Hunt cartridge, and you know, him and I would play Duck Hunt or the Clay Pigeon game that was on there, and we'd do 2-player Super Mario Brothers and stuff like that. And yeah, my dad wasn't a gamer, but I mean, he, you know, he took the time to try it out with me, and you know, we'd bond over stuff like that, or baseball or something like that, you know. And being able to do that with my kid it's awesome, you know. I mean, there's nothing like it. I'm sure when he gets older, to the point where, you know, he can understand the difference between, well, I mean, he understands the difference between fiction and reality now, so don't get me wrong, but I mean, you know, like when I was a kid, I think we were still living at the first house that I remember living in, so it was prior to 91, so I would have been 8 or 9 years old, and I remember watching the first Predator movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I remember some of my mom's friends kind of like being appalled that she'd let me watch something like that. And I remember my mom's answer to that was, I would rather him watch something on TV. And it was on like Fox or something like that, or something stupid. So I mean, it was kind of, you know, it wasn't like full tilt Predator. I mean, it had bits and pieces cut out of it for network television, but you know, she said that not that she was trying to shelter me or anything, but she would rather me watch a movie with a space alien coming to Earth and hunting a group of commandos, because I know that can't happen, as opposed to being exposed to the horrors and real-world violence of everyday life that was all over the news at the time. You know, the late 80s, early 90s, there was a lot going on. I mean, it's not like it is now, you know. I mean, there wasn't theaters weren't getting shot up during when Batman came out, you know. But I think as he gets older, I mean, his tastes may change. But, no, I'm not going to let him watch like the worst fucking horror movies ever made or anything like that, or play like Grand Theft Auto or anything of that nature. But when he's like 8 or 9, I could see him and I sit down and playing like Borderlands 3 or something stupid like that if he's still interested in it. But which I'm not sure where I was going with this, but it's kind of leading into like, you know, I think the problem in this day and age that at least from what I've seen now, you know, he's old enough that he's in school and, you know, you're interacting with other parents more, and, you know, you got, I don't go to any of the school meetings, but, you know, you read in the paper about the school board meetings and things like that, and, like, there's a fine line between overexposing and sheltering your child to what's going on in the world, and it's a tricky thing to stay in between, and you try to keep that balanced, you know. His mother and I were not together, but, you know, we're civil, we're friendly, you know, the peace is kept, and he's not like, it's not like he's a child of this horrible, terrible, broken world, but, you know, he, for 6, I think he's got a pretty good grasp on, like, the world isn't completely and utterly hopeless and dangerous, but, you know, it's not 100% safe either. And one thing I think, yeah, it's kind of, I don't know if it's because he has OCD or what, but, like, you know, he always asks questions, because I get him on my days off, and he's always like, well, who's picking me up off the bus today, and, you know, things of that nature. And I remember one time he was in kindergarten, his mom's car broke down, and she sent me a text message. She's like, can you get him off the bus? I says, yeah, sure, I'll get him off the bus. So I showed up at the bus stop, and the bus comes, and he goes to get off, and he stops on the top of the steps of the bus, and he looks at me, and he goes, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. I was like, I know your mom's car broke down. I had to come get you. And I was kind of proud of him because he's aware enough that, you know, he asks, like, who's supposed to be getting him each day? And if that person's not there, he's like, you know, what's going on? Or something, you know? And I mean, it was kind of tricky because in this day and age, you never know if, like, the school or the bus driver is going to be like, yeah, I mean, luckily you know, the bus driver knew who I was. I mean, you know, in this day and age, I mean, they could have been like, well, he's not getting off with you or anything like that. But I mean, it's good that he, like, he's aware enough that, you know, if something's out of place or something doesn't seem right, then he knows something's up. So, I mean, he's aware enough that, like, I don't worry about him ever getting into the creepy guy's van with the candy or anything like that, you know. But, you know, that's you know, getting back to what I said a minute ago, that's the tricky part with kids. Like, you want to make sure they know that they have to be cautious and careful to an extent, but you don't want to, like, overexpose them to the horrors of the world, because there's an innocence with being a kid that you don't want to lose right away, and you don't want to. And I will never forget the disappointment I felt when he found out. Like, I forget how he found out. I don't know if, like, they were watching the news and they talked about it, or, like, one of his grandparents had the news on or something. But I mean, he heard about the shooting at the Dark Knight Rises premiere, and it was disappointing for me because I felt like, for him, you know, Batman is this huge hero. I mean, he loves Batman. You know, anything Batman he's into, and it was just disappointing to me because, like, that's something you don't want to see your child go through as a kid. You know, you don't want this horrible act of this horrible tragedy associated with your childhood heroes or anything like that. But I mean, at the same time, he like he I guess in a way it's like it's scary because like you don't want your kid to not feel safe anywhere, but you also don't want them to think that the world is nothing but bubblegum and roses and flowers and trips through the fields of daisies and things of that nature. And I was kind of apprehensive about, what would happen. And I forget what the movie was we took him to afterwards, but it was either Oz the Great and Powerful or it was Transformers Dark of the Moon because he's a big Transformers fan. And I wasn't sure how it was going to go, but after hearing about, what happened at The Dark Knight Rises, but he was fine, we went and sat through the movie and he wasn't like looking around to make sure, I mean, he was okay. But, that's something that I think every parent faces, and you don't want them to I don't know. You want to keep your children protected, but at the same time, I mean, you're not going to be able to protect them from every aspect of life. And at the same time, as I said, they need to understand that the world potentially can be a scary place, but you don't want to traumatize them with like how bad it can be. So, it's hard. And the longer the time passes, and the older he gets, the more I really appreciate what my parents did for me. And I mean, it's the same old cliche. I mean, when I was growing up, especially when I was a teenager, like, I went through that whole I know everything. You guys are stupid. You don't know what you're talking about. And then I went and did whatever they told me not to do, and it was a mistake. And I tell my dad every now and then, like, it's amazing. The older I get, the smarter you become, and it's true. And like I said, he's only 6. I don't have that whole. I mean, he's got some know-it-all tendencies, but it really makes you appreciate the things that your parents did for you, and I can only hope that I raise him half as good as mine raised me, but I think the biggest thing that I try to instill in him, and this eventually everything I talk about all comes back to and connects together. The biggest thing I want to instill to him is, just not to judge people based on certain aspects of who they are, because that's like, one of my biggest pet peeves is instantly jumping to conclusions and stereotyping people. And I am a firm believer that everybody should be treated the same. I believe in just being chill and cool, and the whole treat others as you want to be treated thing. And people that have watched my past videos know that that's probably one of my biggest pet peeves, is people just being assholes for no reason. And that's just something I try not to, like, I want my boy to not be one of those people that is an asshole for no reason. And so far, he seems to be doing pretty good, but I'd like to say, all kids, like when they're like 6, 7, they're all pretty chilled and relaxed and stuff. But there's some, he tells me about some of the kids that he goes to school with, and there's some kids that are in his age group that they're assholes already. So it's like, if they're acting like that now, what are they going to be like when they're 16 or 17? But see what happens. That was a little off of what I said. I was going to talk about this DLC some more in this video, and then that didn't happen. So it is what it is. You know, these are kind of like game discussion, life discussion type of things, and it's just well, I don't want to say an abstract, but it's just kind of just bringing up points of discussion that if anybody wants to add their opinion, you know, feel free to comment. And I'm still getting the hang of this whole the Google Plus thing, but so far I've replied to every and I don't have like hundreds and hundreds of comments or anything of that nature, but you know, I will reply to every comment that I get. It might not be, you know, immediately after the comment, because compared to most people, I do sleep odd hours and I work odd hours compared to most people. But you know, first chance I get, I will reply to any comment. You know, one of the things that I've always been a fan of is discussion about anything. Like when I was younger, me and my friends, you know, we were awesome, we were cool, we were rebels, man. We'd sit at Eaton Park and drink coffee for 4 hours. But I mean, and it wasn't like, it wasn't because we didn't have a life. It was just like we'd run up there and like, oh, let's go to Eaton Park or, you know, somewhere and get coffee. You'd sit down and you'd start bullshitting. And there was like a local restaurant. There was like a huge group of us. Like you could go in there by yourself, sit down, and by the end of the night, at least 3 or 4 other people you knew were there. Or, excuse me, you could go in, not know a single person, and by the end of the night, maybe have, if not a friend, at least 2 or 3 acquaintances that you would end up conversing with on a regular basis at this place. And like you'd go and we'd just have conversations, just kind of like how I'm doing now. Just sit down and BS and, oh, did you see this? What's coming out? And then you'd start talking about a movie or music or, you know, I mean, and stuff like that. I mean, that was, like I said, it probably wasn't the most exciting thing I could have been doing at the time, but it was slightly more productive than my younger years that I spent drinking and being an asshole. But I mean, at least I was out of trouble. I wasn't doing anything illegal or stupid or anything like that. I was just sitting around drinking coffee and smoking and shooting the shit. But yeah, I've always been a fan of constructive conversation, you know, talking about this, that, and the other thing, and having opinions, and not so much arguing, but discussing different opinions. Like I think I've used this example before. My one friend that I game with on the PlayStation, you know, as I said, I liked Final Fantasy 13. By no means do I think that game was perfect. I can recognize the flaws in that game, but we've had some discussions about why I like it and why he dislikes it, you know. And to me, that's, for lack of a better term, like that's a little bit stimulating to the brain to me. You know, I like being able to discuss points and counterpoints, and I understand not everybody likes everything that somebody else likes, and you know, that's fine. Everybody has different tastes, different strokes for different folks, but there's no reason to be like, oh, well, you like this, you must be an idiot, or you don't like that, you're an idiot. You know, like, I guess one of my good examples would be the whole COD thing. You know, as I've stated, I'm not a huge COD gamer, but I don't have anything against people that enjoy that franchise. If you enjoy it, you're completely entitled to enjoy it. I wish I could enjoy it the way you did, you know, or get the same amount of enjoyment out of it that you do, but I don't, and that's just me. But I don't see the need to condemn anybody that likes or dislikes COD, or likes or dislikes anything that I like or dislike. You know, some people don't. Apparently not a lot of people dislike Borderlands because they are my most popular videos. But I mean, like the Tomb Raider reboot, you know, I did a playthrough of that, and it was right around the time that the definitive edition got announced, and Like from the announcement to when it came out was kind of like when I did my playthrough, my PC playthrough that I uploaded, and there was a lot of discussion there on the forums and stuff, and some back and forth there about um, what was better, and and nobody could just well, I mean, not, I don't want to generalize it, but like some people just can't like recognize that. If you said, "Oh, well, I prefer the PC version," they'd be like, "Oh, well, you're just a PC elitist," that blah 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 blah. And it always devolved into, well, you might have this fancy new Lara Croft texture, but we can play our game at 120 frames per second. And I hate that elitism. By no means am I gonna sit here and try saying, I mean, I can admit PC gaming has a lot more pros than console gaming, but by no means is console gaming terrible. I was a console gamer for years before I built a PC. I almost bought a PlayStation 4 the other day, and then but the only thing that deterred me was I was like, what the hell am I going to play on it? And that's the only thing that stopped me. I will eventually buy a PlayStation 4 because I did like the first two Infamous games. I like the Uncharted trilogy. I sort of liked Killzone 2 and 3, but not enough that Killzone Shadowfall was enough to make me run out and buy a PS4 right now. But with Destiny, they announced, I'm sure it won't be coming out this year, but they announced the new Uncharted game. You got Infamous Second Son coming out. That enough. Those franchises and Destiny alone are enough to make me buy a PlayStation 4. And Final Fantasy 15, obviously, will make me buy a PlayStation 4. And maybe someday I will buy an Xbox One, but in the foreseeable future, no. Wait and see what happens with this Microsoft acquiring the Gears of War franchise, where Halo goes. I do like Halo, I'll admit that. But yeah, right now the Xbox One just doesn't really appeal. Hell, my living room isn't even big enough for me to make use of the Kinect if I wanted to. I mean, I don't like the Kinect. I'm not a real big fan of the concept. But even if I was a fan of the concept and it was something that I wanted to utilize, my living room, as far as I know from how the Kinect works, like, I do not have enough space between my TV and my couch to utilize the Kinect in an effective manner. So I mean, it'll be interesting to see where Microsoft goes with their choices with this generation of console. I heard rumors that a couple of their investors want Microsoft to dump the Xbox brand, but that's no different than, not that, I think it was last year, maybe the year before, not all that long ago, some of the investors in Sony wanted them to dump the PlayStation brand, and I mean, it comes and goes, and flip-flops, but there's an elitism, and it comes from both sides. Console gamers bash PC gamers. Oh, well, I can go out and buy a console for $300, and you got to spend $2,000 on your PC, and blah 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 blah. And it never ends. And I don't understand why people can't just quit insulting each other and understand that both aspects of gaming have their pros and cons. Your PC gaming, obviously, depending on the hardware you buy and the build of your system, you're going to have higher resolutions, higher FPSs. You're going to get a lot of games that you can't get for the consoles, like indie games and certain indie games and things of that nature. You can mod freely for the most part, especially like Skyrim. I played Skyrim. I probably put 140 hours in the Skyrim on the Xbox 360, and then I downloaded it when I built my computer, and using the Steam Workshop and the creation kit and everything. I mean, that's a game changer. I mean, it makes it almost a completely different game. I don't have a whole lot of mods installed, but I have enough that it's like, I think I bought the Game of the Year edition for like 25. It wasn't a whole lot of money, but through a Steam sale. So I mean, you have that, but not everybody wants to. I put a lot of thought and effort. I think I did research for about a month before I settled on the parts for my first build. And a lot of people don't want to do that, and I don't blame them. It's tricky and it's not easy. There's the boar sound. almost. But there's you know, there's a little bit of a learning curve to build your own PC and get it running and get games going. And you know, you run into situations like the original Fallout pack with Fallout 1, 2, and Tactics. You know, try downloading that and run it on Windows 7 without having to dick around to get it to work and tell me how that goes for you. You know, I mean, and some people, they just don't want to deal with that shit. They want to go out, they want to buy their console, they want to take it home, plug it in, hook it up to their TV, turn it on. And granted, they have to download their day one update or whatever, but you know, they can throw their disc in there and play their game for the most part. And I don't fault people for wanting to do that. You know, it's simple, it's easy, and there's nothing wrong with the console gaming experience. I mean, granted, there are some broken ass games on console, but there's broken ass games on PC too. You know, um, if I bought a PlayStation 4, I would probably buy Assassin's Creed Black Flag because at least it'll run. I still have frame rate issues on Black Flag. Well, I take that back. The last time I tried playing Black Flag, I had frame rate issues. And with the computer I have, there's no reason why I should have frame rate issues on Black Flag. I can run Crysis at maximum settings at 60 frames a second, but I have stuttering on Black Flag, you know? So, I mean, that's just poor porting, I guess. You know, so I mean, you have it everywhere, but until people can get over this whole fucking stigma that consoles are terrible or PCs are too expensive and yada 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 and quit fighting and just fucking deal with it, it's not gonna end. But you know, that's just my 2 cents. Again, I gotta really quit ranting about this stuff. I think I go on these tangents about this. I gotta find new stuff to rant about, but I noticed there seems to be a lot more loot goons I'm encountering this time through than I remember the first time I played through this, because it seems like, I think my whole playthrough, I think I came across like 3 or 4 loot goons, and I think the first time I played it, I might have came across like 1. I don't know. I don't know if it has anything to do with the scaling or what, but there's definitely a lot more of them than I seem to remember before. And then, I'm glad in the subsequent, in the DLCs they released for Borderlands 2, they gave you fast travel stations, because some of this stuff, you'll notice I save and quit, because it's just easier to save and quit to get back to where you're going than it is to run all that way. And, you know, I mean, and this was the first game, so I'm sure it was a little rough around it. Also, before I forget, quick little tip for people that are just getting back into Borderlands, the first one. Apparently these guys are, these 4 wereskags are good for farming elemental artifacts for your action skill, because each one of them drops 1. So if you're just getting back into the first Borderlands and you need some elemental artifacts and you're not ready to fight Cromorax or anything, fight these guys if you have this DLC and you're this far into it, because they apparently are pretty generous with them. Each, like I said, every one of them drops 1. But there is, I think in the next video I am going to address something that I have been keeping up on the last couple days. I've been watching that I have some opinions on, and I want to kind of see what other people feel, if they want to comment or not. But for now, we're going to end this video here on a cliffhanger. But I want to thank everybody for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Alright?